Okay, so now that I've enumerated the bones, let's describe the skeleton a little bit with proper terminology. So anteriorly, we have the sternum in the midline with its three parts: the manubrium, the body, and the xiphoid process. Posteriorly, we have the 12 thoracic vertebrae. And intervening between them, there are 12 intervertebral discs. So this is the first intervertebral disc. Each thoracic vertebra articulates with a bony rib that curves around first anterolaterally. So each thoracic vertebrae articulates with a bony rib that curves anterolaterally. So as you can see, it's moving in two directions. It's moving anteriorly in the anterior plane, and it's moving laterally. And then it curves forward again anteriorly, but instead now it moves medially towards the sternum. So as it hits this part, this margin, it starts moving anteromedially in this direction. Okay? So let's say that sentence again. Each thoracic vertebra articulates with a bony rib that curves around first anterolaterally and then anteromedially towards the costal cartilage to complete the rib towards the sternum. The sternum's lateral borders have notches which articulate with the costal cartilage. So we can see those notches here. So let's talk a little bit about the ribs. Anteriorly, the upper 7 ribs articulate with the sternum via their costal cartilages. So we can see ribs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. These are all articulating directly with the sternum. But these ones here, 8, 9, 10, and then 11 and 12 are not. So 7, 8, 9, and 10, these ribs form the sloping costal margin. Okay, this is the subcostal margin. And as we discussed, so since the 7th rib articulates with the sternum, the 8th, 9th, and 10th ribs, these articulate with the higher costal cartilage. So the 8th one articulates with the 7th, the 9th one articulates with the 9th one articulates with the 8th, and the 10th one articulates with the 9th costal cartilage. So the 8th, 9th, and 10th end by joining the next higher costal cartilage. These are known as false ribs. So rib 8, 9, and 10 are known as false ribs or vertebrochondral ribs, whereas ribs 1 to 7 are called true ribs or vertebrosternal ribs. Ribs 11 and 12 are free, so they're called floating ribs or vertebral ribs. Okay, so let's summarize that again. Ribs 11 and 12, these are floating ribs. Ribs 8, 9, and 10, these are called false ribs. And ribs 1 to 7 are called true ribs. Okay, there you have it. These are vertebrosternal. These are vertebrochondral. And these are just vertebral. 11 to 12, 8 to 10, and 1 to 7. Okay? Now, the last thing I want to tell you about the ribs before we move on to the other slides. For the sake of anatomical description, we will be learning that there are two main types of ribs. When we talk about their anatomical structure, right, we want to understand that ribs 3 all the way down to rib number 9. These are called typical ribs because their structure is pretty standard and they have similar features. The rest of the ribs, from ribs 1, 10, 11, and 12. So let me write that down. 1, 10. So ribs 1, 2, 10, 11, and 12. These are called atypical ribs because their structure differs amongst each other. And it differs with the typical ribs. Okay, so that's it for the skeleton of the thorax. Let's move on to the joints and the movements.